We're live. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my dog, Cooper Copper Steve. My name is Karen, and this is the beautiful Chantel. Today, I know normally we'll be doing a vinyasa flow in this practice, but today Chantel has come to me and she has a bulged disc in her back. So we're going to be doing a yoga practice that is not a flow, and we're going to be doing a lot of lumbar support today. So to start off for the pranayama, the first part of the breathing practice, I'm going to get Chantel to lie down on her back and then just start to breathe. So you can keep your knees bent if that feels better on your back, which it probably will, with the tension in the low back. And then just start inhaling and exhaling while my dog steps on you. While Chantel breathes, I'm going to find this guy a kennel, and I'll be back. So just continuing to inhale and exhale, allowing the belly to relax. Cooper, come. Cooper, come. So as Chantel is breathing, I don't know if you can hear it, but she is constricting the back of her throat on the inhales and the exhales in Ujjayi breath. And that throat constriction is audible as you breathe. We're trying to extend the time that it takes to exhale in order to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system and get her body to calm down before we start the practice. Her body's response with an injury is probably to grip and hold and be in a stress response state. So we're starting off the practice trying to calm things down and allow things to release and relax so that then we can re-engage the core for anybody that's having lumbar support issues to try to stabilize that area so that you can move forward in life without hurting yourself. So continuing to fully relax the belly, breathing in and out, allowing the breath to come all the way into the bottom of the lungs. And then exhaling, expelling all of the used air, slowing down the breath, allowing the weight of gravity to pull you in towards the mat. Breathing in deeply and evenly. Begin to relax your forehead and the crown of your head. If anybody out there is doing yoga with us, you'll want to release the creases in your forehead. Release the jawline, give yourself half a smile, relax the ears. Release the teeth if you're clenching through the jaw. Relaxing through the shoulders, allowing them to fall back towards the mat. And then releasing through the collarbone and the chest and the pectoral muscles. Releasing through the upper arm bones. And releasing the hands if you're clenched. Allowing everything to relax. Release through the hips and the glutes. Oftentimes people will grip through their hips or their glutes if there's tension that's held there. So try to just mindfully breathe into those areas and just allow the muscles to expand. Release through the upper legs and the lower legs and the feet and the toes. Continuing to breathe deeply and evenly. now that our system hopefully has started to calm down a little bit, I'll just ask that everybody practicing with us, if you can do just a mental scan of your body with your eyes closed, just so you can take note of what's going on with you today. If you're having any sort of areas that you're feeling discomfort or tightness, maybe you feel fabulous, that is great. Send me your secrets. And then just maybe to take note of those same areas at the end of practice and see if anything's changed. Maybe it stays the same and that's okay as well. We're gonna open the eyes, and then we're gonna start with some wrist mobility work. So I'm gonna get Chantel to grab her forearm with her opposite hand and then hold the forearm in space so that the relation of the top of the forearm stays the same, so it's in the same place. So the top of your forearm is not going to rotate as we go through these exercises. And then I will demonstrate for the camera here. We're going to have the wrist flex up into extension and then down into flexion. Just noticing that the forearm doesn't move, so we're isolating movement in the wrist. So just up and down a few times. Maybe feeling the muscles in the forearm starting to work as you move that wrist up and down with your hand in the fist position. And then beginning to roll through the wrist, kind of coming through all the different movements that are available to you while keeping that forearm stable. Go ahead and release. And then we're going to do the opposite side. So go ahead and grab the hand around the opposite wrist and then begin to go into wrist extension, lifting the knuckles towards you, and flexion, pushing it away from you. Again, holding so that the forearm is staying stable and not twisting or moving. The elbow is staying static in space as we go through the movements. Are you feeling it as we go through the different muscles in the forearm? Yes. Starting to engage and wake up a little bit. And then go ahead with the wrist circles. Hopefully noticing you can see your elbow is starting to move at that point. Trying to keep it totally static in space, so we're isolating movement in the wrist. A lot of what we're doing today is going to be isolated movements within the body so that we are not compensating through the spine for Chantel today. All right, now we're going to go back to the first arm, and then however you had that forearm in relation to your body, you're going to flip it. So generally for people, that's an external rotation. Our tendency is to have the palms facing down initially. So we're going to have the palm facing up. We're going to take the opposite hand and keep the forearm there, and then we're going to go through the same motions, taking the hand towards you and taking it away. And hopefully you'll get some different sensations switching to the opposite side of the forearm. Coming into flexion and extension. Hearing Cooper bark in the background because he's not happy that I've locked him away. And then go ahead and do some wrist rolls. Maybe noticing if this side is harder or easier than the opposite. Chantel's laughing. I don't know if you can see that. Nicely done. All right, let's go to the opposite side. So again, take the forearm opposite way, grabbing it with the opposite hand. And this hand is to stabilize it so you're not rotating the forearm. You see how my elbow is swinging in and out. This hand is just to remind me of that movement if I'm doing it, to not do it, making a fist, and then coming into flexion extension, just bending the wrist backward and forward. Hopefully feeling new sensations because it's a different side of the forearm that we're using. And remembering to breathe. If this is difficult, and if there's ever computer people out there watching, which, I mean, most of you are probably in front of a computer now, I would guess, so maybe you're computer people. Hopefully you're feeling something. And then moving into full rotation of the wrist without moving the forearm. Chantel is working really hard. She's biting her lips right now to try to not get that elbow swinging backward and forward. Rotating the opposite direction. The elbow keeps going to wiggle. Good. Okay. And release. And you can shake it out or move it around. The hand that I was gripping with, I was gripping quite tight, so I'm going to work into those fingers a little bit because they're sore. All right, now that our wrists are a little bit warmer, we're going to start to work them a little bit harder. So we're going to come on to our hands and knees initially. And I'm going to go back here, and I think I'm going to move the camera angle so that you can hopefully see what we're doing with our wrists as we do it. So initially just sit back on your heels, however is comfortable. If sitting up on your toes doesn't feel comfortable, keep them tucked underneath you. If this is too much, you can grab a block or a large book or pillow and put it underneath you so that you're not feeling like you're in an uncomfortable position. We're working on the wrists, and hopefully you shouldn't feel discomfort anywhere else. So we're going to take these wrists and we're just going to push forward with our fingertips facing towards the front of our mats. And then slowly bring the hips forward, loading onto the wrists. And then coming back. You can't see from that angle, but we're trying to get the shoulders above the wrists, not forward of the wrists. And back. And then we're going to take the hands and we're going to turn them towards the outside. So my fingertips are pointing to the outer edges of the mat. And again, only coming forward as much as is comfortable for you. With any of the yoga that you find here, just lifting up. I always want you to listen to your body and do what feels good to you. Your body is your teacher. I am just a suggestion giver. That is my role. And if something doesn't feel good, don't do it. You might feel a little bit of discomfort. I'm okay with that as we're going through stretches or we're strengthening muscles that maybe are shaking because they're working hard, but there should never be pain. If there's ever pain in joints, you need to stop and reassess what we're doing. We're going to take the hands, we're going to rotate so that the fingertips are facing towards our knees. Same motions, just lifting the hips as much as is comfortable, putting a load through the wrists. And then leaning back. And coming forward. And leaning back. And then you might start to notice here whether you have tendencies, like as I go back, the palms of my hands tend to lift a little bit because I don't have the bend in my wrists like some people do. I'm not able to bend my hand back more than that. And again, listening to your body and doing what feels good in your body. Take the wrists up. Now we're going to flip it and we're going to come onto the back of our hands. So I'm going to be putting my hands with the fingertips facing towards me, but the back of my hand will be in contact with the mat. Being very, very gentle here, not to put weight into the wrists in this position, but just to use it more as a stretch. I just want to point out this is my first YouTube video and I didn't realize the dog would be this way. So in future, I think we'll probably put him downstairs. I'm not even sure if it's showing up on the audio in the video, but it's quite hilarious because he's speaking to us and he's not happy. And then go ahead and lean back. And then we're going to take the fingers and point them towards one another and then go through the same motions. If this becomes too much on your knees, feel free to grab pillows underneath them or a towel. A folded up blanket will often work quite well. And then back, but be very, very sensitive to the wrists in this position. We don't want a lot of weight in them at all. This is just a stretch. We're just going for mobility. come up. And then go ahead and move them around. Do whatever you feel like is needed. Hopefully you're feeling like there's more mobility in them now than before. And then we're going to work on the toes a little bit as well, just to kind of get the foundations set, and then we're going to do a little bit of core work and stability work. Very different from what we normally do, but this is also very good key work for us to be doing in our practice. So right now I'm going to get everybody to tuck your toes on your mat and keep your shins in as close as possible. So our heels are trying to pull in towards one another as much as is possible, and the toes are tucked as far under as possible. For some people, this might not feel good, and this position is your stretch. For other people, you can start to bend the hips back, coming back, maybe walking the hands towards the knees, and then maybe even coming up to a seat, just listening to your body. I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to spin it around towards Chantel so that you can see what I mean with the toe position. So here's Chantel's toes, and I'm gonna get her to take that pinky toe and just untuck it and try to put the fingerprint of the pinky toe on. Your pinky toes are cute. So we're gonna sit like this, and you can see here that it's stretching out the whole back of her foot, which helps to stretch out the back line, the fascial line of the body. This position that Chantel's in might be super intense for most people, and in that case just go to whatever position feels good to you, and like Chantel is doing, if it's too much, come off. Always listening to your body and what you feel feels good to you. Remembering to breathe into your belly. And then when you're done, coming forward onto the wrists, untucking the toes, and it feels really good to smack them against the floor. All right, we're gonna do some more toe mobility work. Normally I would do this from a seated position, but because we're working with a back injury and it's probably from being in a seated position, I'm gonna have you lay on your back. And I'm going to demonstrate from a seated position, so hopefully some of you can see me, and then Chantel will be able to see me, because I don't think that I've done this exercise with you before. So first off, we're just going to take a foot up towards you so you can see it. And then with one hand, we're going to bend all the toes down except for the big toe. So with the opposite hand, we're going to pull it towards us. Stretching through that toe. And then taking the middle toe, bending the rest down. So we're trying to get mobility between the toes. And I'm going to bring the camera around to show everybody. Full 360, because it was very bright on the other side. So she's just alternating the toes and pulling them up one by one. If you're doing this from a seated position, you can just be leaning forward. And then doing this with your heel on the ground. If you feel like you're wanting more work, you can elevate the foot. If you're elevating the foot, see if you can balance between the two sits bones. Once you've done that foot, move to the next one. pulling up, starting with the big toe, and then moving to the next. So a lot of the times most of the time, we go through life and our feet are in shoes and they are in socks, and we don't use the muscles that are in our feet, so they oftentimes will be very stiff. And this is a good way to try to get a little bit of the mobility back. Our feet are capable, our toes are capable of making the same movements as our hands. So if you can see, I'm able to individually move each of my fingers. We have that capability in our toes. We just don't use it. Most of us, anyway. So the more that you can go barefoot and use your feet, especially on different types of surfaces, help to build muscle strength. I'm not suggesting you go out and start running barefoot, but all right, that one's done. Now we're just going to work the opposite hand with the opposite foot, and I'm going to interlace my fingers on each of my toes. And then I'm going to take the hand and I'm going to squeeze really, really hard. It's not going to feel super comfortable. I'm going to bring the camera over to Chantel so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So her fingers are interlaced between her toes, and she's squeezing with the hand at this point. And then don't move your hand from where it is, but release the fingers and squeeze with the toes. So push with your toes to curl down over the fingers. And this helps to open up the spaces between the toes, and it wakes up those muscles. We've stretched them a little bit, and now we're trying to engage the muscles. Go ahead and release. Take your fingers out. Ooh, look at that. They can like all be separate from one another. All right, and then the opposite side, and I'm going to do the opposite side as well. If you ever do something on one side, you need to make sure that you're doing it on the other. So weaving my fingers in between each of the toes. If it's hard for you to do this, for people that are out there, you can just weave the tips of your fingers through the toes rather than trying to force yourself to come all the way through the large part of your fingers. So if just putting your fingertips through the toes is all you can do, then just do that. And then we're squeezing with the hand first to open up through the toes. And I'm hoping that you're getting all sorts of sensations in your body that you're not used to getting.
I am.
And if you're used to getting these sensations, for anyone out there, that's good for you. Go ahead and bend through the toes now. So relax the hand and then bend through the toes. So I'm curling my toes around my fingers, giving them something to grip into. So it's interesting, just changing something little can make a really big difference. I know I went to one of those pedicure places that give you the foam things for between your toes when they're painting. Anyway, I took it home with me, and then I decided it would be a fun experiment to try and wear it overnight. I lasted like an hour. I woke up super uncomfortable and I had to rip it out because my feet just aren't used to being in that position. Even though that's a very natural position, a lot of bunions, go ahead and release. Bunions and foot deformities and things happen because of laxity in the muscles and laxity in the ligaments in the foot because we just don't use it enough. And then foot deformities can translate into knee problems and hip problems and back problems. So, not that I'm blaming anybody out there for your problems, but maybe it's your toes. Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to do hands and knees. And we're going to start to work the core. So the way that we do this is something new to me. I got to have a new prop added to my prop arsenal, which is exciting, as Chantel's about to find out in a moment. You've been practicing with me for 6 years? 5 years?
Yeah.
Years. Yeah, anyway, so she's seen all my props and all my fun things, but this one today is a new one. So initially, I think that you can probably see my back a little bit better than Chantel's in the picture, but do you see how my shoulders are elevated more than my hips? I want to take my shoulders down to the same level as my hips. So I'm going to have Chantel do that, and then I want you to line up your head and your neck so it's in the same place. And actually, Chantel, I might get you to spin sideways if we can. Yeah, that way we'll get a better picture. And then, so she's bending through her elbows so that her shoulders and her hips are in the same line. And then I'm placing this dowel here, which is my new fun thing.
Oh.
And what I want to happen here is I want to see her head and her upper back hitting the dowel. So she's dropping through her breastbone a little bit. So you need to pick up through the shoulder blades here, but keep the lower back in its normal curve. And then it touches through the sacrum as well. So lift your head just a little bit till you feel the back of the butt. And then lift through here a little bit. Lift through here a little bit. Keep the shoulders down. Lift through here a little bit. Good. And then hopefully she's feeling some sort of engagement within her abdomen to keep her spine in that position. So we're really working today on trying to stabilize through her torso area in order to support her spine. Continue to breathe. You can lift up through the shoulders a little bit more. And we'll see if the dowel can stay in one place. The dog is not happy, but I can only imagine that he would love to chew on this dowel, so we're going to leave him where he is right now. Are you feeling like you're engaged through the abdomen, trying to keep this position?
Everywhere.
Everywhere? Everywhere? Good. Good. So another couple of breaths here. Breathing in deeply and evenly. So even though you're engaged through your abdomen, you're still able to breathe. And your lumbar curve is actually flattening out. So see if you can reestablish that curve in your lower back. So the dowel touches your sacrum, but not your lumbar curve. So you're engaging through your torso and not using your back muscles. I want you to stay there without the dowel, and then for those of you that don't have a dowel or a broomstick at home, you can take a book or a block and you can set it on the back of the hips like this, and that just provides you with a little bit of feedback to see if you can maintain this position. But for right now, we're going to give Chantel a bit of a break. You can sit back onto your heels. You can take a bit of breath. That's good. But it gets you to engage in a different way than you normally would. And we want that type of engagement as we go through vinyasa flows. So hopefully in the next coming weeks, when we go through flows here, you can get that type of engagement. All right, now we're going to go into the same position, but we're going to be doing a little bit of extra work. So you can come this way on your mat on all fours. And then I'm going to place the block on your hips.
Do you want me to lower my shoulders again?
I'm going to get you to lower your shoulders again, yes. So we're keeping the shoulders above the wrists. And then we're just going to start to engage the core a little bit more. So I'm going to get Chantel just to lift her right hand up off the mat, trying to keep the block in space, trying to make sure that this inner part of her stays engaged, and then release the right hand and lift the left. Remembering to breathe as we go through this exercise. Go ahead and release, and then we're going to lift the right back knee. Just to hover. Might be a little bit harder with the block. And release. Left back knee up. Just noticing what tries to compensate, where your body bends into when you're doing motions like this. And down. Do you feel like you can take it one step further? Mm-hmm. So right hand, left knee. Down, left hand, right knee. down. That still felt okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want you to keep the torso engaged, just like we were doing, and then I want you to extend through the right arm and take it forward. As you take it forward, I want the arm to spin so that the inner elbow portion of the arm comes towards your ear. Keep facing down towards the mat so that your neck and spine are in line with the rest of you. And down. And opposite hand, keeping your spine in space, keeping it totally stable, remembering the dowel and the block. And down. And then we're going to take the right leg back, but instead of coming up all the way, we're just going to take it back and push into the toes. If that feels good and you feel like you can stabilize your back, you can lift the heel up to horizontal. If you feel like you cannot stabilize, then please keep the toe down. Stay here for 5 breaths and then switch to the opposite side. I'm going to go move my dog. I hope you can all hear Chantel breathing. She does a really good job of the Ujjayi breath, which just helps her to focus, hopefully, and keep the engagement. So we're done both sides. We're feeling good. All right. So stabilize everything, remembering the dowel, remembering the block. We're going to raise the right hand and the left leg, trying to be completely stable in this position. And releasing down, opposite side up. Again, if this is not feeling good, you can always take that toe to the floor to stabilize through the hips. You want to watch the shoulders. This shoulder that's on the ground might tend to lift forward to bring that other shoulder up higher. You might tend to dump into the shoulder that's lifted in order to get the arm up higher. We want those shoulders to stay stable the entire time. And go ahead and release down. All right, fully engaged through the core. We're going to tuck the back toes and we're going to lift the knees 2 inches up. So here we're really getting engagement through our torso, through our abs and our core. And we're getting engagement through the legs as well. Hopefully this feels really good and really stable in Chantel's back right now. And release down. And we're going to come up again. Breathing slowly in and out. The moment that you stop breathing is a good indication that you need to back off what you're doing because it's become too hard. If you can continue to breathe through something, that's a good sign that things are moving and doing well in your body. And go ahead and come down. Okay, now we're going to go through a little bit of shoulder work, but we're not going to do the stuff that we normally do because I want to protect your back. So we're going to come into Cobra, and I'm going to come into Cobra as well so that I can kind of demonstrate. So we're coming down, and the part that I want to focus on, Chantel's shoulders, you can see a little bit better than mine, is this part of the shoulder here. So I want this part of the shoulder to lift up and away. So come into Cobra, but I want you to remain stable through your low back. So you're engaging the back muscles, but she still can lift her hands up if needed because she's using her back. Go ahead and release. And then I'm just going to show what I'm trying to get at are the pec minor. And if you take your thumb and push it into your armpit and you engage, I don't know if you want to do this too, Chantal, it's kind of fun. But you can feel it with your thumb in your armpit. You can actually engage that muscle there. And that muscle attaches from here to here. We're trying to lengthen through it to roll the head of the shoulder back. So if you're not sure if you're doing it properly, take your hands out wider than your mat and then move them up slightly. Yeah. And then come up to fingertips. Now I'm going to get Chantal to roll her shoulders back as she comes up into cobra again. And breathe here for 2 breaths. Remembering to stabilize through the low back. Chantal is hypermobile as well. So remembering to strengthen is helpful. And hopefully everybody can see that rotation in the shoulder. If I was to come down after your 2 breaths, you can come down, Chantal. If I was to come down, lots of times in cobra I see this, was when people lift. And I want the shoulder heads to roll back. So I see this instead. I'm going to repeat that so if everybody can see my shoulder coming down as I come up, as opposed to this, which taking the hands out wide helps to support. In cobra, we're going to do that one more time. You can choose. You have good mobility in your shoulders and rotation, but I want you to focus on engaging everything else. 2 breaths. And then coming down. And then coming up one more time. Really rolling back through the shoulders, opening up through the collarbone. And then very slowly you can push back into child's pose. And if child's pose feels uncomfortable, if people at home can't get their hips down to their heels, again, you can use a block or a blanket or something underneath so that you have something to sit on. And then relaxing the forehead down. If your forehead doesn't come to the floor, possibly taking another block or a book or a pillow and putting it down so you have access to putting your forehead on a flat surface. It will help your muscles to disengage and release. And then from child's pose, engage through the arms, lift onto the fingertips, and we're going to walk the hands over towards the right. So we're just coming into some lateral flexion, some side bending. And if you've moved over to the right, I want you to open up through your left ribs. So you're breathing into those ribs and trying to create space in between each of the ribs, breathing into the intercostal muscles, allowing them to relax and open. We're doing this in a very supported forward fold for Chantal, so there's no tension on her back. And if there was tension on her back, she would tell me. And if people at home are feeling discomfort, you will stop. And then if you try to come up onto your fingertips a little bit more, and maybe walk that left hand over a little bit more. And then try to re-weight your sits bones. That one sits bone is going to want to lift, and you need to push down into it. Grounding down so that you can open up through the side body, through these ribs. Walking the hands towards midline. And then walking them towards me over on the left for those of you at home. Being very gentle and very careful, maybe starting out in a place that feels good, and then walking further as you're wanting to stretch a little bit more. Again, breathing into the intercostal muscles in between each of the ribs, trying to create more space there, seeing if you can breathe that lung a little bit more fully, and weighting through both hips equally as much as you can. There's going to be a shift of weight, and that's okay, but trying to take that hip so that we're having a very stable pelvis that we're bending the spine from. If we start to move the pelvis, then we throw other things into the mix, which is not what we want in this current time. If you engage through this arm, can you feel it into your ribs more? So she's engaging into the right arm onto her fingertips, and that just helps fire up all the muscles so she can open up through the ribs a little bit more. And then walking back to neutral and just resting in child's pose. Even though these are very small, what seem like small movements, we're working a lot of muscles that aren't normally worked. And we're doing a big job. And hopefully those of you at home are practicing with us and feeling that as well, and not just watching this video and drinking beer. All right, so coming up to a seat, pushing yourself up, gaining sense in your head again. How are you feeling? Good? You doing okay? All right. So we're gonna come to Hasta Padangusthasana. And I brought my chair, which I don't think you've ever done chair work.
Not much.
I do it at home by myself, but this time I wanted to take all the pressure out of her low back. So D, no problem. So I'll demonstrate first, and then I'll have Chantel do it just because she hasn't done it before. For the first one, I don't think that she'll need the chair. However, if she feels like she does need it, then we will go grab it again. I'm going to move the camera so that you guys can see what we're doing a little bit better. So initially we're going to come to stand, and you can do this with your Chantel, and then if you feel like there's any sensation in the low back, then you can let me know. But we're just going to shift our weight into the left foot, raise the right knee up, and grab in front of us. Breathing here. Do you feel like you want the chair? Because you can get the same engagement with a chair under your foot. We're trying to take the front hip bones in the pelvis. So if I take my hands and come down to the top of my pelvis and then reach around the front of the bones there. We're trying to keep these in the same line. So you can see in Chantel, there's a straight line where her pelvis is, and she's not dropping or lifting in order to get that knee up. Usually if you're lifting the right leg up, the right pelvis will come up with it, especially if the leg is extended and you're trying to get it further. But we want the pelvis stable, engaging the core, supporting the spine. Breathing here. And then I'm going to put the chair over to this side because we're going to now externally rotate. And Chantal has the option to use the chair here if she desires. So we're going to take that knee and we're going to bring it out to the side. We want to keep these hip bones that I described to everybody at home. They're called the as-is bones, anterior superior iliac spine, and we're going to keep those facing forward to the front of our mat. Keep them as is. Thank you. Yes. Breathing here. Now, if you're super bendy at home, you can take this foot and you can use a strap and you can have it out to the side. You can hook the toe and have it out to the side, which is Chantal doing normal yoga, but for today, you're feeling it?
Not bad, but I can feel that.
Yeah. So really engage through the core. Then we're going to bring the knee forward. And I'm going to have Chantal take it down to take a break, and I'm just going to move the chair over to the opposite side for her because now we're going to come over. We're going to do a bit of a twist. So we're going to take the knee up. I'm going to shove this in. I'm going to get rid of the block so it's up at the right height. Then take the opposite hand to the knee. And then we're going to twist towards the opposite side, taking the right hand behind us. And then you can use this left hand as leverage to try to grow your spine up and twist it more. So with each inhale, we're trying to lengthen through the spine, through the crown of the head. And then with each exhale, we're spinning a little bit further, possibly looking back towards our hand. If this feels like too much, you can actually have this foot closer to the floor. If you want more, you can take a strap and have the leg long, or you can grab the foot But wherever you are, breathing and really focusing on your core and your pelvic stability here. Keeping those as is bones as is. I like that. I'm going to remember that one.
First one's free.
First one's free. She's charging me for the next one. And go ahead and come forward and release that foot down. Shake it out if you need. And then we're going to come onto the opposite side. So we're going to lift the left knee up. Oh my goodness, you can tell I haven't used my chair in a while because I've got dust all over my leggings. Breathing here. Do you notice one side more than the other? So if you're next to a wall, you can actually put your hand on a wall. If you have a chair, you could be holding onto the chair as you do this, just for stability. Again, we're trying to keep the pelvis level in this pose. So I think you can see with my hands here that it's level as I bring my foot up, and it's not tilting to try to come up further. We want to pay attention to the stability and not the ego here. Continuing to breathe. You can have your hand on your hip, you can have it out to the side. Many different options. And then we're going to bring that foot out in external rotation. Do you want the block under you, or is just tiptoe okay? All right. Sometimes I call this the Captain's Morgan. Captain Morgan's pose. I don't know what I can say and what I can't on camera. That's probably copyright or something. Again, being mindful of the as-is bones, making sure that they are pointing forward so they're lining up with the front edge of your mat. Breathing here. Push down through your heel. And then feel the weight also in the big toe mound and the little toe mound. If you're not sure what I'm referring to when I talk to those things, I have a tutorial that's going to be launching soon, so you can have access to that when it comes out. All right, and then bring the knee forward. And then we're going to switch to the opposite hand on the knee as we turn to rotate towards the opposite side. Looking towards that back thumb. Once again, making sure that the pelvis is straight. And hopefully feeling a nice stretch all along the back and the side of that knee that's bent, or the leg that is straight if you have it straight. Really trying to engage through the core, pushing through that bottom heel, trying to even out your weight between the inner foot and the outer foot. Continuing to breathe, inhaling and exhaling mindfully. And then exhale as you unwind. Take the foot down, and you can go ahead and wiggle it out. You can do whatever movements feel good to you. And then at this point, we're going to come into a little bit of a back bend. For Chantel today, we're going to do a supported back bend. I know that she knows how to do this, so you can do it with me if you want. You can grab a block, coming down to the floor. Be very mindful when you pick up your spine that you're engaging through the core. So we're going to lean back. We're going to tuck through the pelvis as we pull our heels in, and then start to lift the pelvis up off of the floor. And then Chantel's going to insert the block at the medium or the lowest level. So with these blocks, if you're just starting out, this is the lowest level. You'd put it against the floor here, and your hips would sit here. Medium level, high level. So for Chantel, she has it on the medium level, and she set it along her pelvis so that none of her vertebrae, none of her spinal bones are pressing into that block. It should feel quite comfortable. And for her today, we're going to keep the knees close together, keep an internal rotation in the thighs. So this is external, this is internal. Her feet are hip distance apart. And she's just trying to maintain that. So her pelvis is supported and her back is supported, but there is a slight back bend going on as she breathes. And hopefully it feels really good and comfortable. Because we've done a fair bit of work. This is different work than what we normally do. And hopefully it's good work, but it's very different. And as you stay here and breathe, you might notice that your mind starts to wander. And a big part of yoga is just becoming more aware of what's going on in our body, including our mind, as we move through the practice, whether it be a slow practice or a fast-paced practice. And then if thoughts are coming up, just acknowledging them and allowing yourself to return to them when your practice is done. So when you're seated in a long hold like this, maybe focusing on your inhales and your exhales as you sit for longer periods, evening out the breathing and trying to focus on the sensations of relaxing, maybe going through your body and noticing the sensations that come up around you, the temperature of the air that surrounds you, the feeling of the fabric against your skin, or the parts of your body that are coming into contact with the mat or the block or the floor beneath you. We're going to stay here for another breath. And then I'm going to have you lift your pelvis up off of the block, engaging through all of your muscles, taking the block away, and then slowly rolling from your neck, through your thoracic rib cage, down your spine, towards your pelvis. And then when you get to your pelvis, setting the edge of the pelvis down and rocking it towards the floor so it doesn't just come down in a clunking motion. We're going to do a tiny twist here just to release the back. If that feels okay to you, I want you to be really careful. So straighten out the right leg. Maybe shift your hips over towards the left. And then just bring that bent knee over towards the opposite side. Possibly making a block underneath you. Chantal doesn't need one, she's shoving it away. It would probably be better to do less for you right now than more. Don't try to go deep, just find a place that feels really easy. And then continue to breathe. Maybe turn and take your head over towards the left. So we're finding a good place in the spine to twist from. And we've got the entire spine, including the cervical spine, close to the head, involved in the stretch. This is a nice way to release the low back, even after a supported back bend, especially when we do a little bit longer holds. Breathing into the belly. And then coming back to neutral very carefully, very slowly and gently, maybe even helping it with that hand. Bending through the opposite leg before you elongate more. We're doing it that way. She was out raking leaves earlier today, so she's not cold. I'll take a block. This side probably feels better, but I still want you to take it easy. And then work on having both shoulders on the floor. As you tilt towards the left in this position, that right shoulder sometimes wants to come up because it feels so good to get that knee towards the floor. And when the knee hits the floor, it's like, yeah, I've done the pose, but that's not what we're aiming for. Keep the shoulders where they are, and then bend the knee as much as you can. And then use blocks or books or pillows to bolster it up if it doesn't come down to the floor. If it feels good to hang in space, you can do that, but your parasympathetic nervous system will respond better and relax better. Your body will be more at ease if you have something to lean into and relax into. and then you can turn away so your cervical spine is involved in the motion as well, looking over that right shoulder. Breathing in deeply and evenly, allowing the breath to almost massage the spine as you breathe into the base of the lungs. Feel the air as it moves down. As your lungs expand, they press against the spine. And I know that we don't have music on here. Normally we practice to music. But feel free if you're at home, whenever I'm doing online yoga, I usually put on music in the background just so I have something to listen to. And sometimes that's also something that your mind can kind of grab onto if your mind tends to be busy. And it just gives you another tool to sort of focus on and recenter so you're not off thinking about all the other things that happen in life. We don't have music on with the video just so the audio is a little bit better. Hopefully it's okay quality. I guess we'll find out when Chantel and I watch it after this. And then go ahead and release the bent knee, rolling onto your back, readjusting the hips. And we're going to come into a Shavasana. With Chantel today, I'm going to do a shorter Shavasana. Normally I recommend 10 minutes if you can, 11 minutes if you don't have time. Longer is better. If you don't have time, it probably means that you need it more than if you don't. Wherever you are in space, just breathing, feeling the mat or the floor underneath you, allowing your belly to fully relax as you breathe into it and exhale from it. And then go ahead and do that body scan one more time with your eyes closed. What sensations do you feel in your body? Does it feel the same as the beginning of practice? Does it feel different? Not that it ever has to change, not that you have to feel badly or very good about what you've accomplished today, just that you notice if there is something. It's just about awareness, that's all. Thoughts arise, acknowledge them and let them go, and just breathe. Taking in a deep inhale, bring awareness back to your body, maybe wiggling through the fingertips and the toes. For those of you at home, you can pause the video before this point and hold it for as long as you want before you wake up. Rolling onto your right hand side. And then use your arms, especially today, Chantel, use your arms to push yourself up. Coming into a comfortable seat. Finding gratitude for your practice today. The light in me honors and acknowledges the light in each of you. Namaste. And if you enjoyed this practice and you want more, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Karen Barnes Yoga. And if you want more tips and tricks and fun things, fire me an email, karenbarnesyoga@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Should have had my toenails done.
I know.
I didn't even think.
This is still streaming. I don't know how to stop it. Oh my god, you guys, I don't know how to stop my video. Best video ever.